Close your eyes and picture a city bathed in golden light, where stone-paved roads echo with the march of legions, and the Colosseum roars with the cheers of thousands. This is Rome, the heart of the ancient Roman Empire, a civilization that shaped the world. For over a millennium, Rome was more than a city. It was a symbol of power, culture, and ambition. From triumphant victories on distant battlefields to architectural marvels that still stand today, Rome wrote a saga of glory, but also of tragedy. And in the midst of this epic history, one man emerged, shaking the foundations of the ancient world. His name was Julius Caesar, a brilliant general, a cunning politician, and a man who dared to defy fate. Born into the chaos of Rome's republic, Caesar conquered far-off lands, faced formidable enemies, and seized ultimate power. Yet his ambition led to a tragic end, a brutal assassination in the heart of Rome. How could one man propel Rome to unparalleled heights, only to fall at the hands of his closest allies? Here at Empires Unfolded, we invite you on a 30-minute journey filled with passion, uncovering the life and legacy of Julius Caesar, the man who changed the Roman Empire forever. Let's begin. In the year 100 BC, a child was born into a world of chaos and ambition. His name was Gaius Julius Caesar, and he entered life not as a prince or a king, but as the son of a modest patrician family, the Julii, in a Rome teetering on the edge of collapse. The Republic, once a beacon of order, was crumbling under the weight of corruption, rivalries, and civil strife. Powerful generals like Marius and Sulla waged bloody wars for control, their armies clashing in the streets of Rome itself. Temples stood tall, their marble facades gleaming under the Mediterranean sun, yet the city's heart pulsed with unrest. Senators bribed their way to power, mobs rioted in the Forum, and the poor huddled in cramped tenements, while the elite feasted in sprawling villas. Young Caesar grew up in this crucible of violence, where survival demanded cunning, courage, and an unrelenting drive to rise above the fray. Caesar's early years were marked by hardship and peril. His father, Gaius Julius, died when Caesar was just 16, thrusting him into the role of family patriarch. The Julii were noble, tracing their lineage to the mythical Aeneas and the goddess Venus, but their coffers were nearly empty. Their prestige faded in a city where wealth and connections ruled. Raised in the Suburra, a bustling, gritty district of Rome, Caesar learned to navigate a world of merchants, thugs, and schemers. His mother, Aurelia, a woman of sharp intellect, instilled in him discipline and ambition, teaching him to see beyond the squalor of their surroundings. Yet Caesar possessed something rarer, an iron will and a gift for oratory. His voice, clear and commanding, could sway crowds and charm senators, a skill he honed in the shadow of Rome's chaos. But danger lurked at every turn. When Caesar was in his late teens, the dictator Sulla seized power, unleashing a reign of terror. Sulla's purges targeted anyone linked to his rival, Marius, who happened to be Caesar's uncle by marriage. As a young man of barely 19, Caesar found himself marked for death. Sulla ordered him to divorce his wife, Cornelia, the daughter of Marius's ally, as a test of loyalty. Defiant, Caesar refused, choosing love and honor over submission. With a price on his head, he fled Rome, hiding in the rugged hills of Sabine country. Disguised as a commoner, he evaded Sulla's assassins, moving from village to village under the cover of night. At one point, he was captured, but his charm and bribes secured his release. This act of defiance revealed a truth. Caesar was no ordinary man, he was a survivor, destined for greatness. His exile, though brief, was transformative. In 78 BC, after Sulla's death, Caesar returned to Rome, a city still scarred by civil war. Only in his early 20s, he was determined to climb the Republic's treacherous ladder of power, known as the cursus honorum. With little wealth, he relied on his wit, charisma, and relentless ambition. He began as a lawyer, prosecuting corrupt officials in Rome's courts, his speeches electrifying the crowds. His eloquence won him allies among the populares, a faction championing the common people against the aristocratic optimates. But Caesar was no mere idealist. He borrowed heavily to fund lavish public games and feasts, knowing that popularity was power. By 69 BC, he was elected quaestor, a junior magistrate, and served in Spain, where he reportedly wept before a statue of Alexander the Great, lamenting that he had achieved so little by age 30. Caesar's rise accelerated in the 60s BC. In 65 BC, as aedile, he organized spectacular gladiatorial games, plunging himself into debt but earning the adoration of Rome's masses. His flair for spectacle chariots racing in the Circus Maximus, gladiators clashing under torchlight, made him a household name. But he also played a deeper game. He forged alliances with Rome's most powerful men, Crassus, the Republic's richest financier, and Pompey, its greatest general. This trio, later called the First Triumvirate, was an unspoken pact to dominate Rome's politics. In 63 BC, Caesar achieved a stunning coup. He was elected Pontifex Maximus, Rome's chief priest, at just 37. Outmaneuvering older, wealthier rivals, he bribed and campaigned tirelessly, securing the sacred office that granted him influence over Rome's religious and political life. The Senate, wary of his growing popularity, watched uneasily. Yet Caesar's true genius would shine beyond the marble halls of Rome. In 59 BC, at age 41, he was appointed consul, the Republic's highest office, and soon after, governor of Gaul, a vast, untamed region stretching from modern France to Belgium. Gaul was no mere provinceit, it was a land of fierce tribes, dense forests, and endless opportunity. With his loyal legions, Caesar embarked on a campaign that would redefine his legacy. From 58 to 50 BC, he waged the Gallic Wars, a brutal yet brilliant series of conquests. He faced warriors like the Helvetii, who sought to migrate through Roman territory, and the Belgae, whose ferocity tested even Rome's disciplined legions. Caesar's strategies were masterful. He built bridges across raging rivers in days, outmarched his enemies, and struck with precision. His legions, clad in segmented armor and wielding short swords, moved like a machine, their loyalty to Caesar absolute. The pinnacle of his campaign came in 52 BC at the Battle of Alesia. The Gallic leader, Vercingetorix, a charismatic chieftain, united the tribes in a desperate stand against Rome. Holed up in the hilltop fortress of Alesia, Vercingetorix commanded tens of thousands, while a massive relief army marched to trap Caesar. Outnumbered and besieged, Caesar pulled off a feat of military genius. He ordered his men to build 2 rings of fortifications, one to trap Vercingetorix, another to fend off the relief army. For days, the Romans fought on both fronts, their catapults hurling stones, their shields locked against a tide of Gallic warriors. Caesar himself rode into the fray, his red cloak a beacon to his men. In a final desperate clash, the Romans broke the Gauls, forcing Vercingetorix to surrender. The victory was staggering. Gaul, a land larger than Italy, was now Rome's, its wealth and slaves flooding into Caesar's hands. Caesar's dispatches, the Commentarii de Bello Gallico, were sent back to Rome, written in crisp, gripping prose. Read aloud in the forum, they painted him as a hero, a commander who brought glory to the Republic. His name echoed in every tavern, temple, and tenement. The people of Rome, weary of corruption, saw in Caesar a champion. He had added vast territories to the Republic, from the Atlantic to the Rhine, and his legions adored him, ready to march to the ends of the earth. But with glory came danger. Caesar's victories made him richer and more powerful than any Roman in generations. He was no longer just a general. He was a phenomenon, a man whose fame rivaled the gods. In the Senate, envy and fear took root. Men like Pompey, once his ally, and Cato, a staunch defender of tradition, saw not a hero but a threat. Caesar's wealth, his private army, his popularity, they whispered, of treason, of a man who might crown himself king, a title Rome had despised since its founding. The Senate demanded he return to Rome as a private citizen, stripping him of his command and exposing him to prosecution. To comply meant ruin. To defy meant war. In 49 BC, Caesar stood at the banks of the Rubicon, a small river marking the boundary of his province. His legions waited, their breath visible in the winter air. Rome's fate hung in the balance. Would Caesar bow to the Senate's demands, or would he take a step that would plunge the Republic into chaos and change history forever? Caesar had conquered Gaul, his name a beacon of glory across Rome. Yet, as his legions stood poised at the Rubicon, the Senate's ultimatum loomed like a storm. Would he surrender his power and face ruin, or ignite a war that could tear the Republic apart? Let us follow Caesar into the crucible of ambition, where his next steps would reshape an empire. In the winter of 49 BC, Julius Caesar stood at the banks of the Rubicon, a shallow river separating his province of Gaul from Italy. Behind him, his loyal legions waited, their armor glinting under a pale moon. Before him lay Rome, the city of his birth, now a battleground of politics and pride. The Senate, led by Pompey the Great and the aristocratic Optimates, had demanded Caesar disband his army and return as a private citizen. To obey meant facing prosecution, disgrace, and likely death at the hands of his enemies. To defy meant civil war, a betrayal of the Republic's sacred laws. Caesar, now 49, was no stranger to risk. His life had been a series of gambles defying Sulla, conquering Gaul, outwitting senators. Yet this moment was different. As he gazed at the Rubicon's rippling waters, he uttered words that would echo through history. Alea iacta, as the die is cast. With a single step, he crossed the river, leading his legions into Italy and plunging Rome into chaos. With the Rubicon behind him, Caesar set his sights on Rome, but the path to power was paved with bloodshed. How would a man who had conquered foreign lands fare against his own people? Caesar's march on Italy was swift and relentless. The Senate, caught off guard, panicked. Pompey, once Caesar's ally in the first triumvirate, had been tasked with defending the Republic. But his legions were scattered, and Caesar's reputation as a general struck fear into his enemies. City after city opened its gates to Caesar, their leaders swayed by his promises of clemency or intimidated by his 13 legions, hardened by years in Gaul. By the time Caesar reached Rome, Pompey and the Senate had fled to Greece, abandoning the capital. The Eternal City, with its marble temples and bustling forum, lay eerily quiet, its fate now in the hands of a man who had defied its laws. Caesar seized the state treasury, claiming it for his cause, and declared himself the protector of the Republic. But this was no victory. The real war lay ahead, across the seas, where Pompey was gathering an army to crush his former friend. Caesar pursued Pompey with the tenacity of a hunter. In 48 BC, he sailed to Greece, his legions braving stormy waters to confront the Senate's forces. Pompey, commanding a larger army and a formidable navy, seemed to hold the advantage. Yet Caesar's brilliance shone in adversity. At the Battle of Pharsalus, in the dusty plains of Thessaly, he faced Pompey's army, outnumbered 2-1. Caesar's legions, lean and battle-hardened, trusted their general implicitly. He deployed them with surgical precision, exploiting a gap in Pompey's cavalry. As the sun set, Pompey's forces crumbled, his soldiers fleeing or surrendering. The great Pompey, Rome's celebrated hero, fled in disgrace, his dreams of restoring the Republic shattered. Caesar, ever magnanimous in victory, spared the defeated, winning their loyalty. But Pompey's fate was sealed. He sought refuge in Egypt, only to be betrayed and beheaded by agents of the young king Ptolemy XIII, hoping to curry favor with Caesar. With Pompey defeated, Caesar turned his gaze to Egypt, a land of intrigue and opulence. But victory in Greece was only the beginning. New alliances and temptations awaited in the shadow of the pyramids. Caesar arrived in Alexandria in 48 BC, pursuing the remnants of Pompey's faction. He was 49, his hair thinning, his face lined by years of war, yet his charisma remained undimmed. Egypt, ruled by the Ptolemaic dynasty, was a kingdom in turmoil. torn by a power struggle between Ptolemy XIII and his sister, Cleopatra VII. When Caesar was presented with Pompey's severed head, he recoiled in horror, mourning the man who had once been his ally and son-in-law. This act of betrayal by Ptolemy's court set the stage for a new chapter in Caesar's life. Enter Cleopatra, a 21-year-old queen of unparalleled intellect and ambition. Smuggled into Caesar's presence in a rolled-up carpet, she emerged to captivate him with her wit, fluency in 9 languages, and vision for Egypt's future. Their meeting sparked not just a political alliance, but a passionate romance that would alter the course of history. Cleopatra needed Caesar's military might to secure her throne. Caesar needed Egypt's wealth and grain to fuel his campaigns. Together, they became an unstoppable force. In Alexandria, Caesar found himself besieged by Ptolemy's forces in a bitter urban war. For months, he and Cleopatra held the royal palace, their bond deepening amid the chaos. Caesar's legions, outnumbered, fought with ferocity, setting fire to part of the city's great library in the process a loss that would haunt scholars for centuries. By 47 BC, reinforcements arrived, and Caesar crushed Ptolemy's army at the Battle of the Nile. Ptolemy drowned in the river, and Cleopatra was crowned sole ruler, now pregnant with Caesar's son, Caesarion. This child, a symbol of their union, tied Rome to Egypt in ways no one could have foreseen. Caesar lingered in Egypt, sailing the Nile with Cleopatra, their golden barge a floating court of luxury. Yet Rome called, and with it, the unfinished business of his enemies. Having secured Egypt, Caesar returned to Rome, no longer a general but a conqueror. But could he rule a city as deftly as he led an army? The Republic awaited its new master. By 46 BC, Caesar had defeated the last of Pompey's allies in battles across Spain, Africa, and Asia Minor. At Thapsus and Munda, his legions proved invincible, even against seasoned Roman foes. Rome, weary of war, hailed Caesar as its savior. The Senate, now packed with his supporters, showered him with honors, statues, a golden chair, the title Imperator. In 46 BC, he was named Dictator Perpetuo Dictator for a role that gave him near absolute power. Caesar, now 54, was no mere warlord. He saw Rome's flaws, its corrupt elections, its unequal laws, its crumbling infrastructure, and set out to remake it. He reformed the courts, cracking down on bribery that had festered for decades. He expanded citizenship to include loyal provinces, knitting the empire closer together. He reorganized the chaotic Roman calendar, introducing the Julian calendar, with its 365 days and leap year, a system so precise it endured for centuries. Caesar's vision extended beyond politics. He planned grand public works, libraries, theaters, a new Senate house to rival the East's splendors. He settled veterans on new lands, easing Rome's overcrowded slums. His laws protected debtors and curbed the excesses of the elite, earning him the love of the common people. Yet his reforms came at a cost. The Senate, once the Republic's heart, was reduced to a ceremonial body, its power eclipsed by Caesar's will. He wore purple robes, a color of kings, and sat on a throne-like chair, whispers of monarchy trailing him like a shadow. Old allies like Mark Antony cheered his rise, but others, like Cicero, a defender of republican ideals, watched in dismay. Caesar's triumphs for grand parades in 46 BC, showcasing captives like Vercingetorix, sawed the masses but alienated the elite. His clemency, sparing defeated foes, was seen as arrogance, a king sparing his subjects. Caesar stood at the pinnacle of power, his reforms reshaping Rome, but with every statue raised, every title granted, his enemies grew bolder. Could the man who conquered empires survive the daggers of envy? The year 45 BC marked Caesar's zenith, yet cracks appeared in his empire. His relationship with Cleopatra, now living in Rome with their son, fueled rumors of a foreign queen meddling in Roman affairs. Senators whispered that Caesar aimed to declare himself king, a title anathema to Rome's republican soul. His adoption of his great-nephew Octavian, a quiet teenager, hinted at a dynasty, further stoking fears. Caesar's health, weakened by years of campaigning, showed signs of strain. Rumors of seizures, perhaps epilepsy, circulated. Yet his ambition burned bright. He planned a grand campaign against Parthia, dreaming of conquests to rival Alexander. But Rome was not Gaul, nor Egypt. The city that cheered his triumphs was also a nest of vipers. Men like Brutus, a trusted ally, and Cassius, a resentful senator, began to plot. They saw in Caesar not a reformer but a tyrant, a man whose power threatened the republic's very existence. Caesar, ever confident, dismissed the warnings. He disbanded his bodyguard, trusting in his clemency to shield him. As 44 BC dawned, he prepared for the Senate meeting on the Ides of March, unaware that fate was closing in. His reforms had made Rome stronger, but they had also sown the seeds of his downfall. The people loved him, but the elite feared him. The Republic, battered by war and change, could not bear the weight of one man's ambition. Caesar had crossed the Rubicon, defeated Pompey, and won Cleopatra's heart, but could he conquer the hearts of Rome's senators? The answer lay just beyond the horizon, in a moment that would echo for millennia. Caesar had risen from exile to dictator, his will reshaping Rome. Yet, as he walked toward the Senate on that fateful March day, shadows gathered. What would become of the man who dared to rule an empire alone? Let us step into the final act of Caesar's saga, where betrayal and legacy collide. The morning of March 15, 44 BC, dawned crisp and clear in Rome. The Eternal City buzzed with its usual rhythm. Merchants hawked wares in the forum, priests offered sacrifices at temples, and citizens crowded the streets, their voices a cacophony of Latin. Julius Caesar, now 55, prepared for a Senate meeting at the Theater of Pompey, a grand complex built by his late rival. His purple robes, a symbol of near-royal authority, flowed as he walked, his face etched with the weariness of war but alight with purpose. He had dismissed his bodyguard months earlier, confident that his clemency-sparing foes like Brutus and Cassius would shield him. Rome adored him, or so he believed. The people cheered his triumphs, his reforms had eased their burdens, and his Julian calendar promised order. Yet, beneath the city's surface, a conspiracy festered, its roots deep in envy, fear, and the fading ideals of the Republic. Caesar's power, once a beacon of hope, had become a lightning rod for resentment. As the Ides of March approached, a group of senators sharpened their daggers in secret. Who were these men, and what drove them to betray Rome's greatest son? The conspirators, numbering over 60, called themselves the Liberators. They were a mix of old enemies and trusted allies, united by a single goal: to save the Republic from Caesar's tyranny. At their core stood Marcus Junius Brutus, a man Caesar treated like a son. Brutus, in his 40s, was a respected senator. His mother, Servilia, once Caesar's lover. Caesar had pardoned him after Pharsalus, granting him high office, yet Brutus chafed under Caesar's dominance. Gaius Cassius Longinus, lean and ambitious, was the conspiracy's firebrand. A survivor of Pompey's defeat, he resented Caesar's clemency as a humiliating debt. Others, like Decimus Brutus and Trebonius, joined for personal slights or fear of Caesar's rumored kingship. They saw a Rome where the Senate, once supreme, was now a shadow, its debates drowned by Caesar's decrees. Whispers of Cleopatra's influence, her son Caesarion, a potential heir, fueled their dread of a monarchy. To these men, Caesar was no longer a reformer but a tyrant, his purple robes a mockery of republican virtue. The plot took shape in hushed meetings, cloaked by Rome's labyrinthine alleys. The liberators chose the Ides of March, a day steeped in ritual significance, for their strike. They planned to ambush Caesar in the Senate, where weapons could be concealed under togas and no guards would interfere. Warnings reached Caesar's soothsayer's cry, "Beware the Ides of March." A note slipped to him that morning, but he brushed them aside. His wife, Calpurnia, pleaded with him to stay home, haunted by dreams of blood. Yet Caesar, ever defiant, refused to cower. He was Rome's dictator perpetuo, his will unbreakable. As he entered the Senate chamber, The conspirators surrounded him, their faces masks of deference. The air was thick with tension, the marble walls cold and silent, as Rome's fate hung on the edge of a blade. The Senate chamber, bathed in morning light, became a stage for betrayal. As Caesar took his seat, the liberators closed in. What unfolded in those fleeting moments would change Rome forever. The attack began with a feigned petition. Tullius Cimber, a conspirator, approached Caesar, begging for his brother's pardon. As Caesar waved him off, Cimber grabbed his toga, yanking it down a signal. In an instant, the daggers flashed. Publius Servilius Casca struck first, his blade grazing Caesar's shoulder. Caesar, stunned, cried out, "Casca, you villain, what are you doing?" He fought back, seizing Casca's arm, but the others surged forward. Brutus, Cassius, Decimus, their blades tore into him, each blow a release of pent-up fear and fury. The Senate chamber echoed with the sickening thud of steel on flesh, the gasps of onlookers frozen in horror. Caesar, blood streaming from his wounds, staggered under the onslaught. Legend holds that when he saw Brutus among the attackers, he whispered, "Et tu, Brute? And you, Brutus?" Heartbroken or resigned, he pulled his toga over his face and fell at the base of Pompey's statue, his lifeblood pooling on the marble floor. 23 stab wounds marked his body, a testament to the conspirators' rage. The liberators raised their daggers, shouting, "Liberty!" to a stunned Senate. They expected Rome to rise in gratitude, hailing them as saviors. Instead, chaos erupted. Senators fled, screaming, as word of Caesar's death spread like wildfire. The Forum became a riot of panic. Shops shuttered, and citizens barricaded their homes. The conspirators, realizing their miscalculation, barricaded themselves on the Capitoline Hill, their dreams of a restored republic unraveling. Caesar's body lay abandoned for hours, a grim symbol of Rome's fractured soul, until loyal aides carried it home. Calpurnia wept over her husband, while Cleopatra, still in Rome, fled with Caesarion, sensing the storm to come. The man who had conquered empires was gone, but his death was not the end, it was the spark of a new inferno. Caesar's blood stained the Senate floor, but his shadow loomed larger than ever. As Rome reeled, new players emerged to claim his legacy. Who would inherit the empire he had shaped? In the days following the assassination, Rome teetered on the brink of collapse. Mark Antony, Caesar's loyal lieutenant, seized the moment. A burly, charismatic general, Antony delivered a fiery funeral oration in the Forum, displaying Caesar's bloodied toga to the crowd. His words, laced with grief and rage, turned the masses against the conspirators. "Friends, Romans, countrymen," he began, his voice rising over the wails of mourners. Riots erupted, with mobs hunting the liberators' allies, burning their homes. Brutus and Cassius fled Rome, their vision of liberty crumbling under the weight of public fury. Antony, now consul, seemed poised to take Caesar's mantle, but he was not alone. Caesar's will, read aloud, stunned Rome. He had named his great-nephew, Gaius Octavius, an 18-year-old of fragile health, as his heir, adopting him as his son and bequeathing him 3/4 of his vast fortune. Octavian, as he was now called, arrived in Rome, a youth with no military experience but a keen mind, and Caesar's name as his shield. The will also gifted every Roman citizen 300 sesterces, a gesture that cemented Caesar's popularity even in death. Antony, dismissive of Octavian, underestimated the boy's cunning. Meanwhile, Cicero rallied the Senate against Antony, hoping to restore republican ideals. The power vacuum sparked a new civil war. Brutus and Cassius raised armies in the east, while Antony and Octavian, uneasy allies, joined forces with Lepidus to form the Second Triumvirate in 43 BC. Their proscription's death lists, targeting enemies, claimed thousands, including Cicero, whose head and hands were nailed to the Forum's rostra. In 42 BC, at Philippi, Antony and Octavian crushed Brutus and Cassius, both of whom died by suicide. The Republic's last defenders were gone, and Caesar's heirs turned on each other. The Republic lay in ashes, its ideals buried with Caesar. Yet, from his death rose a new Rome, shaped by his vision. What did Caesar leave behind, and why does his name endure? Julius Caesar's assassination did not restore the Republic, it destroyed it. By 31 BC, Octavian, now Augustus, defeated Antony and Cleopatra at Actium, becoming Rome's first emperor. The Republic gave way to the Roman Empire, a system Caesar's reforms had unwittingly paved. His Julian calendar, still the basis of our modern system, ordered time itself. His laws, expanding citizenship and curbing corruption, strengthened Rome's provinces, binding them to the capital. His military tactics, from rapid marches to fortified sieges, became the blueprint for Roman conquests. Even his name Caesar became a title used by emperors from Augustus to Nero and echoed in Kaiser and Tsar centuries later. The roads he built, the aqueducts he planned, the very idea of a centralized empire all bore his mark. Beyond stone and law, Caesar's legacy was human. He was a man of contradictions, merciful yet ruthless, visionary yet arrogant. He spared enemies like Brutus, only to die by their hands. He loved Cleopatra, yet left her to face Rome's wrath. His charisma inspired legions, yet alienated allies. To the people, he was a champion, redistributing land and wealth. To the elite, a tyrant who crushed their power. His Commentarii, written with lucid precision, remain a literary monument, studied by generals and scholars alike. His life, a blend of triumph and tragedy, inspired Shakespeare's plays, countless books, and the imagination of generations. Rome, without Caesar, might have remained a fractious republic, never achieving the imperial grandeur that defined it for centuries. As the sun set on the Ides of March, Caesar's blood marked the end of an era, but his spirit lived on. Augustus, his heir, built a golden age, the Pax Romana, on the foundation Caesar laid. The conspirators, hoping to save Rome, unleashed the very autocracy they feared. Caesar's death was not a defeat, but a transformation. His legacy, a flame that burned through time. From the Colosseum's roar to the laws governing distant lands, his influence endures, a testament to a man who dared to seize eternity. The daggers of the Ides of March silenced Julius Caesar, but they could not extinguish his legacy. From the ashes of the Republic rose an empire, forever marked by his vision. As we close this epic tale, let us reflect on the man whose name became synonymous with power, ambition, and immortality. In the spring of 44 BC, Julius Caesar fell beneath a storm of blades, his blood staining the Senate floor. Yet, in death, he became more than a manna legend, a symbol, a force that shaped the world. Rome, the city he loved and ruled, mourned his loss, its streets echoing with the cries of a people who saw him as their champion. The republic he sought to reform crumbled, giving way to the Roman Empire under his heir, Augustus. Caesar's life, a tapestry of triumphs and tragedies, wove itself into the fabric of history, its threads stretching across centuries. From the banks of the Rubicon to the sands of Egypt, from the battlefields of Gaul to the heart of Rome, he left an indelible mark, a flame that burns eternal. Consider the scope of his legacy. The Julian calendar, born of his vision, still guides our days, its leap years a quiet tribute to his genius. The roads he paved, the laws he crafted, the provinces he united, these became the backbone of an empire that spanned continents. His name, Caesar, transcended mortality, becoming a title for emperors, a word whispered by kings, from the Germanic Kaiser to the Russian Tsar. His Commentarii, penned with clarity and pride, remain a masterclass in leadership, studied by generals and scholars alike. His story, immortalized by Shakespeare's quill, stirs the hearts of audiences. His betrayal, a timeless warning of ambition's cost. Without Caesar, Rome might have faltered, a mere city-state lost to time, rather than the colossus that defined an era. But Caesar was no god, nor a flawless hero. He was a man of contradictions, merciful yet ruthless, visionary yet blind to the daggers of friends. He spared Brutus, only to die by his hand. He loved Cleopatra, yet left her to face Rome's wrath. His reforms lifted the poor, but crushed the Senate's pride. To some, he was a tyrant, his purple robes a betrayal of republican ideals. To others, a savior, his reforms a shield against chaos. This duality makes him timeless, a mirror reflecting our own struggles with power, loyalty, and legacy. What do you see in Caesar? A hero who dared to dream beyond Rome's walls, or a man whose ambition outgrew the republic he swore to serve? As we stand at the close of this journey, let Caesar's story linger. His life reminds us that greatness comes at a price, that one man's vision can change the world, for better or worse. Here at Empires Unfolded, we invite you to share your thoughts. Was Caesar Rome's greatest son, or its fatal flaw? Comment below, like this video, and subscribe to explore more tales of empires that shaped our past. Thank you for joining us in this saga of glory and betrayal. Until next time, keep the flame of history alive.